Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a medical mystery that literally stretches back millions of years. We're looking at a fascinating intersection of human evolution, your daily diet, and a microscopic sugar molecule called Neu5G. It's a tiny little thing, but it might actually be influencing your health right now entirely under the radar. Let's get into it and comprehensively cover everything you need to know.
I want you to seriously think about this for a second. Is your immune system silently attacking your dinner? I know, it sounds a bit like science fiction, but we're looking at a literal, invisible biochemical battle that researchers believe might be happening right inside your body, sometimes decades after you eat something as totally ordinary as a steak.
Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. We're going to hit 1. Evolution and the missing sugar. 2. Dietary sources and absorption. 3. The xenosialitis hypothesis. 4. Transplants and biotechnology. 5. The scientific debate, and finish up with 6. Practical dietary takeaways. Section 1. Evolution and the missing sugar, a millions-year mystery.
All right, meet the main character of our story today, Neu5Gc. This is a 9-carbon sugar molecule that just hangs out on the surface of cells in the vast majority of mammals. We're talking pigs, cows, sheep, you name it. But here is the massive twist. As humans, we are genetically incapable of making it. Our biology relies on a nearly identical sugar called Neu5Ac. Honestly, the only difference between the two is a single, solitary, extra oxygen atom in Neu5Gc. Just one atom. But to our immune system, that tiny extra atom makes it look like a completely foreign invader, a xeno-autoantigen, the second we consume it. And then that brings us to the core of the issue. Xenosialitis. Now, just to be clear up front, this is a highly active, albeit heavily debated, scientific hypothesis. The theory basically proposes that when we eat Neu5Gc, our cells mistakenly incorporate this foreign sugar right into our very own tissues. Then our immune system spots it and generates circulating antibodies to attack it, which kicks off this smoldering, chronic, localized inflammation. So it's a super plausible and robust research hypothesis, though we should definitely remember it's not a definitively proven clinical diagnosis just yet.
So how did we get here? It's kind of a crazy evolutionary detective story. The gene responsible for making Neu5Gc is called CMAH. Around 30 million years ago, New World monkeys actually lost it. Then, roughly 2 to 3 million years ago, our own hominin ancestors hit a massive evolutionary bottleneck. Researchers think it was likely a deadly malaria parasite that actually used the Neu5Gc sugar as a doorway to infect cells. So to survive, our ancestors permanently mutated and basically turned off that CMAH gene. They lost the sugar, evaded the malaria, and survived. It was a brilliant evolutionary hack. But today, our modern meat-heavy diets are reintroducing this exact same sugar back into a body that quite literally evolved to reject it.
Moving on to Section 2, Dietary Sources and Absorption, Neu5Gc absorption.
Take a look at the massive contrast in this data. Because we can't make it, Neu5Gc exposure is strictly diet-dependent. And red meats like beef, they have absolutely incredibly high concentrations. We're talking up to 231 micrograms per gram. Pork and goat cheese also pack a pretty significant punch. But look right down at the bottom row. Poultry, fish, and literally all plant-based foods contain absolute zero. Zip. The sialic acids in your chicken or fish are exclusively that human-compatible Neu5Ac type.
Now, there are a few major misconceptions we really need to clear up here. First off, cooking does not destroy this sugar. It is highly thermally stable, meaning a well-done steak has just as much Neu5Gc as a rare one. Second, processed meats actually increase its bioavailability. And third, those fancy grass-fed labels offer absolutely zero protection against this specific exposure. Neu5Gc is dictated by cattle genetics, not what they eat. And once you eat it, it gets aggressively internalized right into our gut cells through a cellular drinking process called macropinocytosis.
Next up, Section 3, the xenosialitis hypothesis, a molecular Trojan horse.
So exactly how does this Trojan horse work? Researchers propose a 4-step cascade. Step 1. Your circulating human antibodies, primarily IgG and IgA, identify and latch on to that dietary Neu5Gc that mistakenly embedded itself into your healthy tissues. Step 2. This kicks off an immune cascade, activating what biologists call the complement pathway. Step 3. Those targeted cells are forced into an activated pro-inflammatory state. And finally, step 4, the cells actually alter their surface to recruit white blood cells. This essentially locks the tissue into a low-grade, simmering cycle of inflammation that could, theoretically at least, last for decades.
Now, it is absolutely crucial to distinguish this from known meat allergies like alpha-gal syndrome. They are like night and day. Alpha-gal is an acute, potentially fatal allergic reaction usually triggered by tick bites. It's IgE-mediated. Xenosialitis, on the other hand, is completely different. It's IgG-mediated, meaning it doesn't cause sudden anaphylaxis. Instead, it's a much more subtle, chronic, lifetime low-grade inflammation that is deeply rooted in our evolutionary loss of that CMAH gene.
The most heavily researched implication of all this is in cancer, particularly colorectal cancer. See, because tumors grow so rapidly, they aggressively scavenge dietary Neu5Gc straight from the bloodstream, almost like they're trying to hide from the immune system. Studies show that when Neu5Gc incorporates into intestinal cells, it can really heavily upregulate the WNT/beta-catenin signaling pathway. And we've seen in engineered mouse models that this can lead to uninhibited cellular proliferation and tumor progression.
But the hypothesis doesn't stop there. It extends to our cardiovascular system too. The lining of our blood vessels turns out to be prime real estate for Neu5G accumulation. In mouse models that were specifically engineered to mimic human biology, feeding them a Neu5G-enriched diet alongside matching antibodies resulted in a massive 2.4-fold increase in atherosclerotic plaque. Think about that. It essentially creates these immune complexes right on the arterial wall itself.
All right, let's pivot to Section 4, Transplants and Biotechnology, Modern Medical Challenges.
You've probably heard the news about using pig organs for human transplants to help solve the global organ shortage. Well, historically, these have failed instantly in a devastating process called hyperacute rejection. And why is that? Because pig organs are absolutely coated in Neu5Gc, and our pre-existing human antibodies just attack them on site. It's an instant rejection. To get around this, biotech companies are literally using CRISPR right now to engineer Neu5Gc null pigs. They are editing out this exact sugar just to make xenotransplantation safe and save human lives. It's wild stuff.
And honestly, it's also becoming a major headache in pharmacology. A lot of life-saving biologic drugs, like the cancer drug cetuximab, are actually manufactured using non-human mammalian cells. And as a totally unintended consequence, they get contaminated with massive amounts of Neu5Gc. So when they are injected into humans, our antibodies cross-react with the drug. This drastically accelerates how fast the drug is cleared from the bloodstream, which can really compromise its clinical efficacy.
Which brings us to Section 5, the scientific debate, questioning hypotheses.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the ATG transplant paradox. See, kidney transplant patients often receive an immunosuppressive drug called ATG. It's derived from rabbits and happens to be heavily contaminated with Neu5Gc. In a really massive study of over 38,000 patients, these folks experienced huge, long-lasting spikes in anti-Neu5Gc antibodies. Yet, and here is the paradox, researchers found absolutely no increased incidence of colon cancer in this group. It's a huge epidemiological null finding that directly challenges the idea that these antibodies alone are enough to just cause cancer. Because of findings like that, many top nutrition researchers argue that Neu5Gc is probably more of a secondary amplifier rather than the sole villain of the story. We really have to contextualize it against the heavyweight, universally accepted risk factors of red meat. Things like heme iron, which causes severe oxidative stress in the gut, or TMAO, that gut microbiome byproduct linked to catastrophic atherosclerosis. And of course, the well-documented DNA-damaging mutagens that form when you cook meat at really high temperatures. It's a crowded field of culprits.
Finally, Section 6, Practical Dietary Takeaways, Actionable Health Tips.
So bringing all this complex science back down to earth, what should you actually do? Well, if you want to limit your exposure to this xenoautoantigen, the substitutions are incredibly straightforward. Replacing mammalian meat with poultry or fish immediately drops your Neu5Gc intake to 0. The exact same goes for swapping in plant proteins and legumes, 0 Neu5Gc. And moderating high-fat mammalian dairy, particularly goat or sheep cheese, will also really reduce your burden. The great news here is that shifting away from red meat perfectly aligns with broad established health guidelines anyway, so it's a win-win.
To summarize our objective reporting today, I think this quote perfectly captures the current scientific consensus. Quote, Neu5Gc represents a biologically interesting link between diet and immunity, but its quantitative impact on disease risk is uncertain and likely modest. End quote. The biochemical mechanics here are absolutely brilliant, but right now, xenosialitis is viewed as a moderate contributor, not the primary, smoking gun cause of disease.
I'll leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. Are we just experiencing a massive evolutionary mismatch? I mean, think about it. An ancient genetic survival trait that saved our ancestors from malaria millions of years ago might now be quietly clashing with what's on our modern dinner plates. How this hidden sugar will shape the future of our diets and our medicine is a story that's very much still unfolding. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and keep questioning the science around you.